most clients would appreciate a three-dimensional view of a landscape design. gCADPlus provides a mechanism for getting the base information from gCADPlus, which is essentially a 2D drafting tool, into a 3D modeler. The modeler that most people use is SketchUp. They'll often use SketchUp Make because it's a free version of SketchUp. So we provide a tool to enable you to get base information out into what's called a DXF file ready for importation into SketchUp. Before I do that, I'll turn off the notes layer. I'll turn off information that I'm not going to need in the SketchUp environment. I think I might even pick the scale bar and just move it out of the way. I'll unselect all. Now let's run the tool. It's found on the gCADPlus drop-down menu under SketchUp 3D Modeling. We're going to export geometry to SketchUp. So we're asked to select entities, but reminded not to pick hatching or images or plant symbols. So we'll just put a box around everything, and since we're reminded not to pick hatching, I'll hold the Shift key down and just remove the hatching and any other blocks that we don't need. There's some grass hatching in there, so I think I've removed most of the entities that I don't want transferred. I'm going to transfer this information to SketchUp and then build a 3D model based on it, and that will save me recreating the whole design. So at this point I hit the Enter key, and I'm asked the question, would I like the plant names, the ones that are in the plant schedule, would we like those names put into a separate layer, a text SketchUp text layer? We'll say yes, and here's the result. We now have some base information. Oh, I forgot that piece of hatching, but at this point I can simply remove it. So there's the base information to enable us to build a 3D model. What I'm going to do right now is copy that information to the clipboard. I'm going to start a brand new drawing without a template, right click, paste from the clipboard and pop it into the SketchUp, or what will become a new import facility. Now you'll notice that the point marker is rather too large, so I'll go to Format, Point Styles, and change the size of that to 0.5, and the points essentially disappear. So now we have the base information, and I'm going to save it, File, DXF Tools, DXF Out, and I'm going to save it. I've been rehearsing this, so I'm going to call it Exported number 5, and I'll save it. So away it goes. We now have a DXF file ready to work with in the SketchUp environment. We do have, let's go back to our original drawing, we do have a facility under gCADPlus Sketchup Mod to write the SketchUp file directly to DXF, but I like to do that intermediate step because it gives me a chance to clean things up and just check that I've got the information that I want. It was no name, it's this one here. You can see I had 3 drawings in operation. Can you see now that the names of the plant at each location has been put on that separate layer, and we've got the base information. So we're now ready to switch to the SketchUp environment and bring this base information in, and we've got things nicely layered so we can turn things on or off. Well, now we can switch to the SketchUp environment and use File and Import, change our files of type to DXF, and pick the file that was exported from gCADPlus, and in it goes. I'll pick my plan view, so I'm looking immediately down on the top of the object. If I select the object, the data that was written from gCADPlus, you can see it's one entity, so I'll explode the block essentially into its constituent parts, and you'll notice if we look over here in the Layers tab that the layers from SketchUp SketchUp planting and text came across as well. So now we can use the tools within the SketchUp environment to build a 3D model based on the base geometry. Sorry. Let's zoom in and I'll pan down a little. There's my pan tool, here it is. So let's look at just this back area here. What I'll do is put down a rectangle from, say, that point there to that point there, and just putting that one rectangle down, in fact, brought a couple of surfaces or more than that. We've even got this little block of perennial planting appearing. So that was just one click. If I pick my pencil tool and concentrate our attention on what will be a hedge, you can see that it's just a matter of clicking and like so, and as I move around, drawing the surfaces that will become structures show. So if I now return to a perspective view, changing our camera, yeah, it is on perspective, and I'll orbit around a little. So now I'm looking at that back garden, and let's pan across. So the surfaces that we created can be easily manipulated. It's just a matter of picking the push-pull tool, and we might want to increase the height of that step there. At the moment it's 7 3/4 of an inch. Let's imagine that it's 6 inches high. Let's leave this surface as is, although we could bring it up or down at will with the push-pull tool. But we'd be more interested in the hedge here. So you can see if I orbit around like so, I can pick my push-pull tool and pick that surface there and bring it up to, let's say it's going to be 3 foot high edge. Oops, 3 inch high. We want, I'll undo that and pick it again. If I move up, so it's 3 foot, and in it goes. Now we can orbit around further and again use our push-pull tool to line that up. So now it's a matter of assigning materials. What I imagine we might do is put a surface over the whole site and then lower it down, because we're going to have some steps leading from what will be a grassed area through and down to a lower zone. So you can see that it's relatively easy to create some 3D geometry based on the 2D information that you get from your gCADPlus file. Well, here is the SketchUp model being developed, just using that DXF file as a base and then applying textures, surfaces, pulling and pushing up as required. For example, we've got a complex path running through here. You can see how easy it is to select it. This zone through here might well become a clump of perennials, so we can just bring it up like so, and then we'll apply a pattern to it later. We haven't put any of the symbols in yet, any of the plants themselves in yet, but we know their position. And if we want to paint, it's just a matter of getting the paint bucket here and pick some sort of colour for the pavers. That's a herringbone pattern. We could just apply that to that path running through there. I'm not saying one would in a design sense, but you get the drift. It's quite easy to pull up because the base is already there, and the sizes mean something. If we pick this measurement tool and measure from the top to there, you can see we're 12 feet high, and that means that we're working on a full-size model and dealing with things and building up a model so that we can talk to the client relatively easy. You'll notice I haven't put any shadows on or done any rendering yet. There are relatively few materials in there. I've not added light sources. All of this can be done using your SketchUp skills. Well, here's some textures being applied to surfaces within the developing model. I'm not rendering it, although I am seeing shadows being applied, but I haven't done any serious rendering as yet. So I hope you can see that building a 3D model in SketchUp based on information in the DXF file that comes from gCADPlus is a relatively straightforward process.